I never thought I'd spend what was supposed to be a peaceful Sunday dinner in a sterile hospital triage room, the scent of antiseptic clinging to my wine-soaked shirt and the coppery taste of blood on my lips. But there I was, a 64-year-old man with a gash on his forehead, typing a 4-word text to the man who'd become my lifeline. Phase 1 is complete. Let me rewind. My name is Arthur Finch. For 38 years, I was Arthur Finch CPA, a partner in a respectable, if unglamorous firm in a quiet suburb of Chicago. I retired 2 years ago, not with a bang, but with a quiet sigh of relief. My wife, Eleanor, was the vibrant one, the one who filled our home with laughter, music, and the smell of her legendary sourdough bread. She was stolen from me 5 years ago by a swift and brutal pancreatic cancer. The silence she left behind is a physical presence in our 4-bedroom, 2-story house in Oak Park, a house we bought in 1990 for $185,000. Today, thanks to the relentless churn of the Chicago real estate market, it's appraised at just over $1.8 million. The neighborhood has changed. Young couples with dual incomes and a desperate look in their eyes pace the sidewalks, their iPhones glowing as they calculate mortgage pre-approvals. They tear down perfectly good bungalows and erect modern monstrosities with gray vinyl siding and rooftop decks. My son Mark is 34. He works in business development for a flashy tech startup, a title that sounds more impressive than the reality, which seems to involve a lot of conference calls and client dinners. He's married to a woman named Chloe. Chloe doesn't just enter a room, she curates her entrance. They have 2 kids, Lily and Noah, 8 and 6. They live in Naperville, a solid hour's drive with traffic, in a house that looks like it was furnished from a single West Elm catalog. I see the grandkids maybe once every 6 weeks. The visits are always orchestrated, always on their schedule. This particular Sunday, it was to be a family dinner. Not for a holiday, just a check-in. Mark had called me the previous Tuesday, his voice a little too bright, a little too casual. "Hey, Dad, we were thinking we'd come by this Sunday. Chloe wants to bring over one of her famous lasagnas." A red flag. Chloe's famous lasagna came from a high-end Italian market in the city. She just heated it and transferred it to her own ceramic dish. She only brought it when she was preparing to ask for something significant. I spent Saturday preparing anyway. I made a pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the way Eleanor had taught me. I baked a fresh loaf of bread. The house filled with a warmth that almost felt like the old days. They arrived at 4. I watched from the kitchen window as Mark's black Audi Q7 slid into my driveway. Chloe emerged, holding a casserole dish in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. The bottle was Italian, a Barolo that probably cost more than my entire meal. Another flag. Mark came in first, giving me one of those backslapping hugs that men of his generation have perfected. All motion, no emotion. "Dad, place looks great, really holding up." "Thanks, son. It holds me just fine." "Kids, come give Grandpa a hug." Lily and Noah scampered in, their energy a welcome jolt to the quiet house. They were still innocent, still genuine. Lily showed me a drawing she'd made at school, a lopsided house with a smiling sun. Noah talked excitedly about a new video game. For a few precious minutes, it was normal. It felt good. Chloe air-kissed my cheek, her perfume a cloud of jasmine and entitlement. "Arthur, thank you for having us. I brought my lasagna, and this," she said, setting the wine on the counter with a theatrical flourish, "is a very special Barolo. We'll have to decant it." "You shouldn't have, Chloe, really." "Oh, but I insist," she said, her smile a perfect polished thing that never touched her cold blue eyes. We settled in the living room. I had the dining table set with Eleanor's good china, the floral pattern she so loved. But Mark wanted to chat first. That was the 3rd red flag. Mark never chats, he monologues. He pitches, he reports. He doesn't converse. He was focused, intense, his gaze flicking to Chloe every few seconds, like they were co-pilots running through a pre-flight checklist. So, Dad, Chloe and I have been talking about your situation. My situation? Well, living here alone, this big house, the yard work, the maintenance, it's a lot for one person. I offered a small, polite smile. I managed just fine, Mark. The house is paid off. Old man Henderson's kid mows the lawn for $40. It's not a burden. But you're not getting any younger, Chloe chimed in. She was perched on the edge of the armchair, looking like a hawk about to swoop. We worry about you. A fall, a medical emergency. What if something happens and no one is here? You could be lying there for days. I have my life alert, I said, tapping the button on my belt. And Mrs. Gable next door has a key. We check on each other. Mark and Chloe exchanged a glance. It was a well-rehearsed, silent communication. He's not taking the bait. We have a proposal, Mark said, his voice taking on that salesman's cadence I knew so well. Chloe's parents, Frank and Cynthia, you've met them. I had. Twice, at the wedding and at Lily's christening. Frank was a loud, opinionated former car dealership manager. Cynthia was a retired dental hygienist with a face locked in a permanent state of mild disapproval. Good people, I said neutrally. They just sold their condo in Fort Myers, Chloe jumped in, her voice rising with feigned excitement. They made a killing, but the market appears just impossible for them to re-enter. They want to be closer to the grandkids, but everything in a safe neighborhood with a good school district is, well, you know. I nodded, saying nothing. I simply waited. We were thinking, Mark continued, spreading his hands as if presenting a brilliant new business model, you have those 3 extra bedrooms, just sitting empty. What if Frank and Cynthia moved in with you? There it was, the ask. They could be a huge help, Chloe gushed. Mom is a fantastic cook, and she's a clean freak. She'd keep this place spotless, and Dad is so handy, he could fix anything that breaks. It would be like having live-in help, and you wouldn't be alone anymore. We'd all be one big, happy family. I looked directly at Mark. And what do you think about this, son? I think it's a practical solution, Dad. A win-win. You get companionship and help. They get an affordable place in a fantastic neighborhood. We get peace of mind. The timer on the oven buzzed, a shrill sound that broke the tension. The pot roast is ready, I said, standing. Let's get everything on the table. In the kitchen, I leaned against the counter for a moment, closing my eyes. Breathe, Arthur. Stay calm. This was precisely the scenario my lawyer, Julian Croft, and I had been preparing for over the last 8 months. You see, I had received a frantic call from my financial advisor, David Chen, over the last 8 months. Someone had tried to initiate a wire transfer from my primary investment account. They hadn't succeeded, David's fraud protocols were top-notch, but they'd gotten far enough to trigger every alarm. They'd used my social security number, my mother's maiden name, Henderson, and even the name of my first pet, Buster. The digital trail led back to an IP address registered to Mark's home in Naperville. I didn't confront him. Instead, I went to see Julian Croft, a razor-sharp estate attorney with a reputation for being a pit bull in the courtroom. We met at a diner far from my usual haunts. Arthur, he said, stirring his black coffee, this is textbook. I see it every day. The adult children get impatient. They see the house, the retirement accounts, and they start viewing it not as your legacy, but as their delayed compensation. They test the waters with small financial probes. Then they move to concern about your living situation. The goal is to get a foothold in your life, then your assets. What do? I asked, feeling a cold dread settle in my stomach. We build a fortress, and we set a trap. Over the next several months, we executed his plan with military precision. First, I underwent a full neuropsychological evaluation with a specialist in geriatric cognitive health. The report stated I was of superior cognitive function for my age group with no signs of impairment or dementia. It was documented, notarized gold. Second, Julian helped me rewrite my will and establish a complex, irrevocable living trust. The terms were ironclad. Any attempt to contest it would result in immediate disinheritance. Third, and this was Julian's masterstroke, we installed a state-of-the-art whole-home security system. It wasn't just for break-ins. Tiny, invisible cameras were placed in the living room, dining room, kitchen, and even the front porch, all with crystal-clear audio recording. If they're planning something, Julian had said, they'll reveal it, and when they do, we'll have a high-definition Dolby Digital record of it. I carried the pot roast to the table. We sat down, the picture of a normal American family. We passed the dishes. Lily talked about her soccer team. Noah complained about the carrots. I asked Mark about work. Chloe complimented the bread, though I saw her only take a single tiny bite. Then, as I was pouring gravy, Mark circled back. So, Dad, about Frank and Cynthia, have you had a chance to think about it? I set the gravy boat down carefully. I have, and my answer is no. Chloe's smile didn't so much fade as it shattered. No? Arthur, why on earth not? I value my privacy, Chloe. I have a routine. I don't want roommates. They're not roommates, she hissed, the veneer of civility cracking. They're family. Your family. I've met them twice, Chloe, I replied, my voice still calm. They are your family, and this is my home. Mark leaned forward, his voice taking on a patronizing tone I'd never heard from him before. Dad, let's be reasonable. You're 64, living alone in a 4-bedroom house. What happens when you're 70, 75? You'll need help. It's inevitable. And when that day comes, I said, meeting his gaze, I will hire help, or I will move to a retirement community of my choosing on my terms. Those places cost a fortune, Chloe practically spat. Why would you waste your money, your legacy, on some sterile facility when you could have family here taking care of you? Because it is my money, and it is my house. The silence that followed was thick enough to chew. Lily looked up, her eyes wide with fear. Noah had stopped eating, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Kids, I said gently, why don't you go into the living room and see if you can find that new cartoon you like, the one with the blue dog? They didn't need to be told twice. They scrambled away from the table. The moment they were gone, Mark's mask fell completely. This is unbelievable, he muttered, running a hand through his hair. Your selfishness is astounding. We're trying to help you, secure your future, and you're acting like we're trying to rob you. I remained silent, letting him dig his own grave. Chloe stood up, her face mottled with rage. Do you have any idea what our mortgage is? Do you have any clue what private school for the kids costs? We are drowning, Arthur, drowning. And you're sitting here in your $1.8 million asset, hoarding space like a dragon on a pile of gold. I am not hoarding anything. I am living in it. You're living in it alone, she shrieked. Eleanor's been gone for 5 years. When are you going to move on? When are you going to start thinking about someone other than your miserable, lonely self? That one cut deep, a direct hit on the rawest nerve I had. But I didn't flinch. Julian's training was paying off. Stay calm. Let them be the unstable ones. I simply said, my answer is still no. That's when she snapped. With a guttural cry of pure fury, her hand shot out and she didn't grab her glass. She grabbed the entire, heavy bottle of Barolo. Before I could even react, she swung it in a wide, violent arc. It didn't hit me directly, thank God. Instead, she brought it down hard on the edge of the oak table right in front of me. The thick green glass exploded. A geyser of expensive red wine erupted, soaking my face, my shirt, my hair. A sharp, dagger-like shard of the bottle flew up and sliced a clean, deep cut just above my eyebrow. I felt a stinging pain, followed immediately by the warm, relentless flow of blood. For a second, no one moved. Chloe was panting, her chest heaving, her eyes wide with a kind of shocked triumph.
Mark was frozen, his mouth agape. I slowly raised my hand to my forehead. My fingers came away dripping crimson. I looked at the blood, then at Chloe, then at Mark. "I think," I said, my voice eerily quiet, "I need to go to the hospital." "Dad, my God, Chloe, what did you do?" Mark stammered, finally jolted into action. "She assaulted me," I stated flatly, "and I need medical attention. I'm going to drive myself to the ER. You need to take your children and leave my house." I walked past them into the downstairs bathroom. I grabbed a clean hand towel and pressed it hard against the wound. In the mirror, I saw a shocking sight. An old man with a blood-soaked face, his white shirt stained purple, pieces of glass clinging to his collar. It was a perfect, pathetic picture of a victim. Perfect. I walked back through the dining room. Chloe was sobbing now, the performative kind. Mark was patting her shoulder, murmuring, "It's okay, baby, it's okay." "It is not okay," I said, my voice cutting through his nonsense. "Take your kids, leave now." I didn't wait for a response. I grabbed my keys and wallet from the hall table and walked out the front door. As I backed my sensible Toyota Camry out of the driveway, I saw Mark frantically trying to herd the crying kids out of the house. At the first red light, I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking, not from fear but from adrenaline. I opened the text thread with Julian Croft and typed the 4 words we had agreed upon. "Phase 1 is complete." His response was instantaneous. "On my way to Oak Park General. Don't say a word to anyone. I'll handle everything." The ER was a special kind of chaos on a Sunday evening. A triage nurse took one look at my blood-soaked towel and rushed me to a bay. Julian arrived within 20 minutes, looking impeccably dressed as always in a dark suit, as if he'd been pulled from a board meeting. He examined the cut and whistled softly. Clean, but deep. "Tell me everything. Don't leave out a single word." I recounted the entire evening from the lasagna to the Barolo. Julian recorded it all on a sleek digital recorder. "The kids?" he asked. "They were in the other room. They saw the lead-up, but not the climax." "Good. You did perfectly, Arthur. Textbook. Now, the million-dollar question. Do you want to press charges?" This was the moment we had planned for. The point of no return. Pressing charges would detone a nuclear bomb in the center of my family, but not pressing them would be a signal of weakness, an invitation for them to escalate. "Yes," I said, my voice firm. "Assault with a deadly weapon, and I want a restraining order." Julian nodded, a grim smile on his face. "I'll make the call." Within an hour, 2 Oak Park police officers were at my bedside, a seasoned detective and a younger patrol officer. They were professional, detached. They took my statement, photographed my injury from every conceivable angle, and carefully bagged my wine and blood-stained shirt as evidence. They asked if I felt safe returning home. "I have a state-of-the-art security system, but I want a no-contact order against my daughter-in-law, Chloe Finch, effective immediately." The detective nodded. "We'll file the assault charge first. Given the use of the bottle as a weapon and your age, the DA may look at this as a potential case of elder abuse. Illinois has enhanced penalties for that." Elder abuse. The words hung in the sterile air, ugly and final. They left to begin the paperwork. A young doctor finally came in, cleaned the wound thoroughly, and applied 7 precise stitches. "No concussion. You're free to go." Julian drove me home. The house was dark and silent. Part of me, the foolish, hopeful father, had expected to see Mark's Audi parked out front, him waiting on the porch with a contrite expression. But there was nothing, just the hum of the streetlights. Julian followed me inside. "Let's review the footage." We went to my study and I pulled up the security system's interface on my computer. 4 camera angles. We watched the entire horrific scene play out from multiple perspectives. The clarity was stunning. We could see every contemptuous twist of Chloe's lips, every weak, placating gesture from Mark, the sheer, unadulterated rage in her eyes as she lifted the bottle. The audio picked up every damning word. "This is better than I could have hoped for," Julian said, a note of professional satisfaction in his voice. "This is premeditated aggression. Her argument builds, she makes the threat, and she follows through. You are the picture of stoic restraint. This is a prosecutor's dream." "What happens now?"
I asked, the fatigue finally starting to set in. The police will arrest Chloe, probably tonight. She'll be processed, charged, and released on bond with conditions that include not contacting you. Tomorrow we go on the offensive. We file a formal complaint with your bank and the police regarding the attempted wire transfer. Financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony. We also make the trust documents airtight. We make it explicitly clear that if Mark so much as whispers the word guardianship, he is cut off without assent. And the grandchildren? I asked, my heart aching. Julian's expression softened slightly. We set up separate, irrevocable educational trusts for Lily and Noah. The funds are managed by an independent trustee, me for now. They'll receive the money for college when they turn 25, no matter what happens with their parents. That felt like a small piece of redemption. After Julian left, I sat alone in my living room. The remnants of our uneaten dinner were still on the table. The house, for the first time since Eleanor died, didn't feel lonely. It felt like a fortress I'd successfully defended. My phone buzzed. Mark. I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again and again. Then a text went up the screen. Dad, please, we need to talk. Chloe is a mess. This is all a huge misunderstanding. I turned the phone off. The silence was glorious. The next week was a whirlwind of legal activity. Chloe was formally charged with aggravated assault. She spent one night in jail before Frank and Cynthia posted her bail. The no-contact order was granted. Julian filed the financial exploitation complaint. The bank, after a brief investigation that confirmed the IP address and the fraudulent use of my personal data, permanently barred Mark from any access to my accounts. The RCMP equivalent in Illinois, the state police, interviewed Mark. According to Julian's source, Mark admitted to the access attempt, but claimed he was worried about his father's financial decision-making and was concerned about early signs of cognitive decline. The phrase made my blood run cold. It was the exact language Julian had warned me about, the language used to lay the groundwork for a guardianship petition. A few days later, my doorbell rang. I checked the camera. It was Mark, alone. He looked haggard, a shell of the confident salesman he usually was. I opened the door but left the storm chain engaged. Your 48-hour notice period hasn't passed, Mark. Dad, for God's sake, I'm your son. Can I please come in? We need to talk. Chloe is a mess. This is all a huge misunderstanding. She didn't lose her temper, Mark. She weaponized a wine bottle, and you stood there and let it happen. He flinched as if I'd struck him. I tried to stop her. Not hard enough. I reached inside the hall table drawer and pulled out a copy of my cognitive assessment. I slid it through the crack in the door. Read it. Perfect scores. I am, by all medical and legal definitions, perfectly competent. Your little cognitive decline story won't work. His face crumpled as he scanned the document. What is this? Why are you doing this?
I'm protecting myself from you. My will and trust have been updated. You are a beneficiary, but only if you abide by strict, non-negotiable conditions. Any attempt to challenge my competence, to meddle in my finances, or to violate the restraining order, and you inherit nothing. Lily and Noah's education is secure, but you and Chloe are on your own. You'd really cut me out? Your only son? You tried to cut me out of my own life first, Mark, for a piece of my real estate. He stared at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of shock and a dawning, horrifying understanding. Chloe's parents, they lost their chance on a townhouse because of this. We were counting on them moving in here. And there it was, the final, ugly truth. You were counting on you moving in here. I corrected him softly. Not them, you. To save on your own mortgage, to get your hands on this asset. Now, get off my property. Dad, please. 48 hours. Written notice through Julian Croft's office. Those are the rules. Break them, and I call the police and have you arrested for trespassing. I closed the door. Through the sidelight window, I watched him stand on my porch for a long, long time. He finally slumped his shoulders, got into his Audi, and drove away. I didn't feel triumph. I felt a profound, bone-deep sorrow. But beneath that sorrow was something stronger, the unshakable certainty that I had done the right thing. The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Chloe, faced with the damning video evidence, took a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault and was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 100 hours of community service, and mandatory anger management classes. The elder abuse designation was noted in her file, a permanent stain. Mark sent emails, long, rambling messages filled with excuses and guilt trips. He talked about market downturns affecting his startup, about the crushing weight of his debts. He painted a picture of such desperation that a small, weak part of me almost felt sorry for him. But then I would remember the cold calculation in his voice when he said cognitive decline, and the sympathy would evaporate. 6 months after the incident, as I'd come to think of it, I booked a trip. A river cruise down the Danube from Budapest to Passau. Eleanor and I had always talked about it. I went alone. I raised a glass of local wine to her in a small cafe in Vienna, and for the first time, the memory brought a smile without an immediate stab of pain. The house is different now. It's mine again, truly mine. I've turned one of the spare bedrooms into a painting studio, something I'd always wanted to do. I've started volunteering with the local library, reading to children. I've even had a few pleasant dinners with a lovely widow named Helen from my book club. My finances are secure. The trust is ironclad. The cameras still run, a silent sentinel ensuring my peace. Last week, a small flat package appeared in my mailbox. No return address. But I recognized the clumsy, sweet handwriting on the envelope. It was from Lily. Inside was a crayon drawing of a house with a bright red door. Standing next to it was a tall stick figure with gray hair, me, and 2 smaller stick figures, her and Noah. Above it, she had written, "I miss you, Grandpa." I held that drawing and wept. I wept for the relationship that was stolen from us by greed and entitlement. Julian says when Lily turns 18, she can find me. I'll be here. I'll explain it all. She might understand. She might not. That's a bridge I'll cross in a decade. I'm 64 years old. I might have 25 good years left. I might have 1. But every single morning I wake up in my own bed, in my own house, the master of my own destiny. The doors are locked, the cameras are active, and my life is my own. That isn't selfish, it's sovereignty. So if you're watching this and you're my age, or your parents are, and you feel that subtle pressure starting to build, the concerns, suggestions, the probing questions about your finances, the offers for help that feel more like a takeover, listen to me. Document everything. Get a shark of a lawyer, not a friendly old family friend. Have the hard conversations. Set the boundaries so high they can't be scaled. And never, ever feel guilty for protecting the life you've built. You don't owe anyone your peace, not even your own flesh and blood. Especially not them.